Lonne, thank you for joining us today from New York.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
So Lonne, Insight Partner has been investing in Israel for 20 years. 5 cyber companies, some of them more recent investments. Can you tell us what makes the Israeli cyber sector so special, and why do you find it so attractive?
So the cybersecurity industry in general has really matured in Israel as I think the market has transitioned from much more of a startup culture to what we've been referring to as a scale-up ecosystem. So these are businesses that have product market fit and either the best product or in the top 2 or 3 products in a important new cybersecurity area and are growing really rapidly. And they have as part of this, there's a huge tailwind associated with the growth that you can get in these types of companies if you can provide them with infrastructure at the fund level for things like sales, technology architecture, marketing, how to do acquisitions, how to recruit talent, how to grow internationally, that kind of thing. And the talent there, partially because of the experience that many of the leaders have from their military or intelligence time, and also just because you've had some successes. Like we invested in a portfolio company called Checkmarks, which exited for a little over $1.5 billion earlier this year. Some of the people who are alumni of these companies over time, as they exit and scale up, will then either do new startups or provide support or mentorship, or sometimes even advisor capacity to some of the other startups, which has been really exciting.
Okay, so we have seen quite a few sectors that received quite a hit from the COVID-19. Of course, the travel industry, but some other sectors as well. And so far, the cyber industry seems to not only survive the current crisis, but flourish. Can you tell us why?
Well, so the tailwinds in cybersecurity are partially being driven by the working from home dynamic. So a huge number of people who were previously on company intranets or behind secure perimeters are now essentially punching holes into important corporate infrastructures by virtue of being remote. And similarly, companies themselves are having to completely retool how they deliver products and how they manage their supply chains as a result of what's going on. And so this has really changed the cybersecurity picture, while attackers have actually taken advantage of the situation to start to be more aggressive. And we've been seeing an uptick in things like phishing attacks. And we invested in a really interesting anti-phishing company called Inky recently as an example to help defend against that. I'll just take one of our portfolio companies as an example. So SentinelOne, so they have an AI-powered system that protects endpoints. And so devices themselves using the system can self-defend, they can heal themselves, they can quarantine or remediate problems, they can roll back events to surgically keep endpoints in a perpetually clean state. And that's the kind of business where even in normal times, it's very important. But as people are all taking their laptops home and bringing sensitive data with them, then it becomes particularly important to be able to lock down and secure those systems. Otherwise, they become sources of vulnerability for an entire corporation or a government or even just people's personal data.
Looking forward to the future. So as we said, right now, cyber companies are doing very well. But looking forward to a quarter, maybe 2 quarters from now, cyber is characterized by companies using a lot of cyber products, like a line of 10, maybe 15 cyber products for large companies. Wouldn't we see scaling down? Wouldn't companies recheck themselves and say, well, maybe it's time to recheck if we need all this line of product, maybe we'll take down 1 or 2, and then the cyber industry will take a hit?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I would say the phenomenon, there's been a bit of a fragmentation around cybersecurity products. So you'll see because some of the larger legacy security businesses have kind of shifted into secular decline and have stopped investing over long-term time horizons in new products, it's created this really interesting opportunity for scale-ups to emerge, many of which are coming out of Israel, to sort of do the new version of really important cybersecurity functional areas. But that's also created a bit of fragmentation. So instead of being able to purchase all of the products from the same vendor, you might have to go to multiple different vendors and bring them together. One of the things that we're seeing is an attempt to sort of create a little bit of a rebundling of functionality. I'll just give you an example. One of our portfolio companies based in Israel, Aqua Security, in a way, they're a bundle of capabilities that in the legacy world would have been entire multi-billion-dollar markets in their own right. So things like vulnerability management and source code scanning and monitoring of real-time security infrastructure. But it's not just that it's convenient to buy all of them from Aqua Security because you're getting it from the same sales rep. By virtue of being a tightly integrated bundle that's all built in a way that's cloud native, focused on containers and serverless and the like, it becomes a qualitatively different and better product. And you can do things like secure the workloads end to end from the moment they're created all the way to when they're in production at industrial scale. And that just makes them more secure. It's like keeping the sensitive data and the workloads in a clean room throughout their life cycle. So that trend, I think you'll see continue, which is the new scale-ups, as they continue to grow, they will sort of re-implement some of the bundles. And to the extent that they have a surface area that needs to interact with other high-growth scale-ups, they'll expose data and APIs in a secure way that's much more modular, so that you can have different mix and match from different components and have everything work together pretty seamlessly.
So hearing what I just heard about you describing the cyber field, when you come to investigate a company in order to invest in it, what are the things that you look for? How do you pick a company above everything else?
Yeah, so I'll give an example of a recent investment we did in a company called Armis Security. So this is a pretty sizable investment that we made. What they do, so organizations struggle with having an accurate and detailed inventory of every asset in their environment. So these are things like medical devices or robots on factory floors. And these objects can have vulnerabilities just like a computer or a phone can have, but they don't have the ability to, you can't install agents on them. So you need to have a different type of paradigm and an agentless security paradigm that can see, identify, and classify the devices, track behavior, identify threats, take action automatically to protect critical information, that kind of thing. So when we get involved in a company like this, what we want to see, we want to talk to lots of customers. So by the time we're getting involved, the company is already at scale, has product market fit, and so that has real customers who are using the system. And so we can talk to them and understand, like, what else did you look at? What did you consider? What were you doing before? So we can get really powerful qualitative data around, this is highly differentiated. The team is impressive. The intellectual property is just unique in the market, and there's nothing else like it. And then we pair that with quantitative data. So these are things like financial metrics and underlying operating leverage metrics. So gross retention rates, net retention rates, gross margins, how much net new recurring revenue is being added every month. And these are things that are just very hard to fudge in the sense of, like, when you're at scale and growing 100, 200, 300% per year, the world has essentially done a lot of work for you of deciding that the thing is a good idea, right? It doesn't guarantee that it's going to be a successful investment long term, but at least at the time that you're making the investment, the thing is hitting on all cylinders, and you know that it can absorb a lot of types of resources productively, not just capital, but all of the other infrastructure that Insight Partners has at the fund level.
You mentioned the growth and the scale-up of cyber companies. When you bought Armis, you mentioned that part of the reason you've done it because you wanted to let the company have the room to grow as fast as it can without worrying for further investments. Do you see yourself doing similar kind of purchases for other companies in your portfolio, for other Israeli companies? That's the first question. I guess the second part of the question is how is Armis doing right now? Yeah,
so these are certainly unprecedented times. in general, there's an incredible amount of hardship, change, and confusion. And in the midst of it all, in April of this year, Insight Partners announced the final closing of our $9.5 billion Fund 11. And like everyone, when the pandemic first hit, we were not really sure how it would change our investment strategy. So, we had always remained bullish on cybersecurity businesses and the resilience of the software sector longer term. But we thought that there would be a significant amount of headwinds in top line revenue. So many of our portfolio companies started to tighten their belt a bit, right? Conserve cash in order to make it through the crisis, bracing for significant declines in new business and pipelines getting softer because you couldn't go to conferences and that kind of thing. But actually, we have surprisingly not seen that kind of softness in infrastructure software and cybersecurity so far. And so what's ended up happening is, growth rates have come down slightly from what people had planned initially, but that in general, they've still been quite robust, and profitability or cash burn, the profitability has gone up or cash burn has gone down. And so you've actually started to build up operating leverage that you might not have otherwise if things had stayed hitting on all cylinders from an investment perspective.
Lonne, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but thank you so much for this fascinating conversation. And I hope we'll all do better regarding the COVID-19 soon, and we'll see a decline in the cases, both in Israel and in New York. And hopefully we'll meet face to face next time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, looking forward to that, and stay safe. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you.